Hey everyone, I'm going to do something that I've been asked for a while to do, and that's a preacher jig. Um, should say a preacher style jig. Um, there's various ways to do these. The common element is that they are rather large. Um, what we have in the vise is a ½ ounce banana head. It is not weedless. There's no hole for a weed guard, and it's got a 5-aught Gamakatsu 604 jig hook. Um, this is one of the smaller versions. This is going to be around 6¼ inches when it's finished. That's how long it's going to be. The three most common sizes of these are ½ ounce, 5/8, and 3/4. This is the middle of the road. This isn't a light wire hook, but it's not a super heavy hook. You're going to fish this medium heavy rod, 12 to 14 pound fluorocarbon, and you're going to fish it in 18 feet and less. 20 feet you could, it'll be a slower fall with the ½ ounce, but um, I'm going to show you the way I do it. So let's get started. I'm going to take some 210 denier flat wax nylon thread, and of course the color of this is pearl white, and we're going to use white thread. You can use red thread to give it a little color if you'd like, or black thread to give it some contrast. I'm going to use white because I'm going to add some color contrast with my material. So we cut our little excess off there. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some bucktail. Now, one of the difficult things with this is acquiring the material. I just was fortunate enough to come across some, but you need really long bucktail, 5 inches minimum, which is what I have here. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay it out, and all I'm going to do is even up the ends of it because I want to maintain its length. And I'm going to put a couple wraps to hold it, and then I'm going to spread it around. Now I do mine different. This is just to give you a basic understanding, but from what I know from using them in the clear water areas that I have, these do work. And just keep working it until you get it all the way around. And you don't want a lot. Don't put a lot of material on when you first start. You just want enough that's going to go all the way around, that's going to give you the coverage without any bare spots. That's pretty much what you're looking for. And that's pretty much what we have there. And I'm going to put a couple of wraps to secure it down. Notice I'm not making it real tight towards that ball collar, because if I do, I'm going to flare it out too much. I don't want it flared real heavy, because what the beauty of these things are is the profile, that bait fish type profile. So now that I got my first layer of bucktail on, I'm going to add some crystal flash. And on this pattern, which is a shad pattern jig, I put, this is UV gray. It's actually a gray flash, but when the sunlight hits it, it'll light up almost like a bluish or a purple color, and I want that down towards the end of the bucktail. That's where I want it to end at. So I'm going to take the two strands of flash that I have, and I'm going to tie that in. And I'm going to fold it over to the other side. I'm going to tie it in there. Cut it. the end, and it's going to give me enough for 2 more pieces on each side. Line it up with what I already have tied in. Couple wraps. Fold it over again. And by doing that, you make it that it'll never pull out. It'll break before it would ever pull out. Cut the ends off there. And now our flash is in. Don't seem like a lot. The next step here is what makes this jig. The feathers. Your feathers are going to be around 5 to 7 inches long. And the problem with that is, as you can see, this was a 7-inch feather I cut 3/4 of an inch off, but you could see this fuzz. You don't want that fuzzy part. Now you can find longer ones that are 8 inches long that don't have that fuzz, that you can cut off the bottom part and you'll have enough length on your feather. But if you can't do it, here's what I like to do. I like to take it and get this fluffy stuff back, and I'm not going to pull it out. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim it close to the stem. Well, I wouldn't say close to the stem, but closer to what it is, because I'm going to leave that on there, and I'll show you why when we get to the part of tying it in. But we're going to take that fuzz. If you have real long hackle that's 8 inches and you can get it down to 6 or 7 inches, well, it's going to be about 5.5 to 6 inches. That's how much you'll have left after you take off that fuzzy part. If you could find that, you don't have to go through this step. But if you don't, you could take a feather that's maybe 6 inches in length, and you can use the whole thing. Make sure we get all of that fluff. I still got some here. Apologize for that. It's hard because I don't want to ruin the material, so I'm taking my time and being extra careful with it. But that's how it's going to be cut. You're going to basically have your free-flowing feather, and then you're going to have this stuff down here. It doesn't look attractive at the moment, but it won't be bad, trust me. I'm going to take, whoop, sorry about that. I dropped my scissors. And I got to do the same thing with this feather. As you can see, it's got that fluff on it. So what I'll do is I'll pull back the fluffy area again like I did in my last one. And I'll cut all that off and trim it off. Again, it's something you do not have to do if you have material that's more than long enough. My black feathers are long enough, but my white ones are just a little short. Okay. Now we have all our hackle. I'm going to tie it in. First thing I do is I look to see if there's any curvature or bend. If not, I'm going to tie it in just normally straight. If there is a bend in it, I want it to be hands apart, that it comes out the back and it's like a split tail. So what I'm going to do is pull some off the end here, and now on mine I use depending on the size, I'll use anywhere between 2 to 4 feathers. This one I'm going to put 3 on. Okay, and I'm going to tie them up, tighten them in real good. We got some hair stuck up in there, so I had to unwind it a little bit. Sorry about that. Now on the back end, on my end, with this shad pattern, I'm going to put a black hackle. And I know you can't see it too good, but this is natural black, so it has, I like this natural black hackle. It's hard for me to get. When I do find it in the lengths I need, I buy it because it has this iridescent green color in it, and it really makes for a good jig. Really different. It adds a little bit of a flash, a little bit of color, because you know you got that pearl with all the white bucktail, so you got a lot of white. So for me, I like to add a little bit of color, and on my shad patterns here, I'll add some different color bucktail. Not a lot, but enough. Okay, my hackle is tied in. Now my next step, more white bucktail of the long variety. And what I do with this is I'll take a hunk of this and I'll divide it up into two separate piles. Try to get it as even as I can. And the beauty of this real long bucktail is you really don't have to measure it up and cut it. Just try to get your ends evened up. So you hold it and just trim off the long ends and you're good to go. We're going to put that on the back here. Make a couple securing wraps, and then we're going to spread this bucktail out over top of them feathers. And that's where leaving that hair on the feathers comes in, because now you're not going to have that just a bald stem. It'll blend right in with the added hair that we're putting on, and it'll look really nice. You got that? Now we're going to do the same thing with the other hackle, or with the other bucktail, excuse me. Make sure I don't got any short ones in this bunch. Not too many anyway. Get the ends even. And I'm going to tie it on the back side over top of my black hackle feather. A couple securing wraps. Once again, we're just going to fan the bucktail out to distribute it. And when we get it where we want it, put some more wraps on it. Again, now we're going to start wanting to tighten those wraps up now that we got this second layer on. Another thing too is right here, the top. If you get any hair extending over that, don't cut it off. Take your thread and pull it. That almost helps. That'll lock in a lot of that bucktail. It'll just a little added security. Now, a couple last things. We got our second layer of bucktail in over top of our hackle feathers. Now I'm going to add some color to this. I'm going to take some black bucktail, and this is, if you have real long colored bucktail, black bucktail, you could use that. I just used the regular, just regular prime northern bucktails. Doesn't have to be super long, because all I want, now I'm going to take it to where the top half of the jig is, and I'm going to put this black on there. And it's going to extend about 3.5 inches down. It's going to be shorter, but it's just giving that black back appearance of a bait fish. That's all I want. I don't want, it doesn't have to be much longer, because I put a black feather back there. So the black feather extends all the way back. This is just breaking up the white for me. That's what I do. Now I got that in. I'm going to flip it around, which is nice with a rotary vise. And I'm going to take a little bit of red bucktail that I cut. And this I took from the top. It's going to be a little shorter. I don't want this real long, because I'm going to put a red throat. I'm going to put it in about an inch, inch and a half in length. Whatever you think. That's another nice thing about this, is you could get creative as you want. You could do whatever you feel like, and it's not wrong. And I won't spread this out, because I want, like I said, it's a throat. So I'm putting that red throat in there. Now, add some wraps. We're just about done. It'll be basically securing it up. We got one last thing to do before we're finished. And I'll do that once I get this last bit of bucktail secured. And that is Flashabou. I like to take 2 strands of Flashabou, and this is different than Crystal Flash. It's a little wider. You could see the little flash there. I like the pearl for the pearl, of course. You get an iridescent look, but it's going to give me a flash on the outside of the jig. And I'm just going to put the two strands down each side. And I'm going to do it the same way I do with Crystal Flash. I'm going to tie it in and on one end, and then I'm going to fold it over and tie in the other side. And I'm going to take that little bit, a tiny bit off. Be careful not to cut my bucktail. Well, now my Crystal Flash is in. And now it's just simply making our collar that it's nice and secure, the hair's in there nice and tight, that we don't have any problems with the hair falling out, with the feathers falling out. The very first one, the first bucktail I ever tied, I pulled the hair right out of it when I checked it, but that was a long, long time ago. And these preacher style jigs are nothing new. They're just gaining popularity, but they've been around for a while. Just you didn't see it used in tournaments like you do now. But with all the fishing pressure, going back to some old school ways. And we're just about done. All we got to do is whip finish this bad boy. And I will, 1, 2, 3. Whoop. Sorry about that. That's the table shaking from me cinching down a little bit on this. My mount broke on my camera the last video I did. And so now it's in danger of falling when I cinch the table too hard. Well, cinch the strands and the thread. And then we'll put some head cement on this bad boy. Put it on pretty liberally, that way it soaks in all that thread. This is where your Sally Hansen's is real nice, because it's thin that it penetrates really far down in all those wraps. And then it gets nice and hard that you don't have any problems with. I've had jigs that I've had sitting in my bag that I used year after year after year that I was lucky enough to not lose. 5 years down the road, they're beat up, but the thread still good because of this stuff. Okay. Now we'll take it out to show you what we got here. Pull out some of the short hairs. And there you have it. To hold it like this so you could see it a little better. That's my version of the preacher jig. This is probably, I don't have a tape measure with me, but the last one I did was 6.5 inches. So that's a 1/2 ounce with a 5/0 hook. Work really well. It's got some color in it. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.